All right, so this demo is going to be about adding elements to our grid. We're going to start with a standard grid that we already have made. So I'm using my irregular square grid to use as my groundwork, my base. And now I'm going to be building on top of it. So to build a custom grid, it's start with a standard grid of your choosing, and then you want to add elements on top. So rather than adding another grid like we did yesterday, where we were adding a second grid on top, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take a single grid, and now I'm going to add elements to it. So I'm going to create custom lines and shapes, which don't have restricted properties of the standard geometric shapes. I'm going to use the line segment tool, the arc tool, and the pen tool. And I'm going to walk through each one of them to kind of show you what they do. On the left here, tool palette, this is the line segment tool. It's just a single line, and it's made for just creating straight lines. And many of you might say, like, well, why not just use the pen tool? Well, this is actually, speaking of speed and some of the things that we're going to want to do as designers is be able to do things quickly. And so I'm going to grab my line segment tool and start looking at, I have my smart grid guides on, as you can see. And so when I get into a corner of my rectangle, I can find a point on an existing path. So that's what I want to do. I want to grab a point on an existing path. So here's my point that I'm going to start with, and draw the line manually, snapping from endpoint to endpoint. So you see, when I get here to this endpoint, it just snaps right in because I'm using smart guides. So I can take, and now I don't have to, and with, unlike a pen tool, I don't have to do anything else because it just stops. It doesn't stay continuous like a pen tool line does. So if I want to take and make each one of these into triangles, basically, rather than squares, I can just add my lines like this. And you see, I don't have to worry about, when you're on a pen tool, that line stays with you. So this makes this a much easier solution rather than the pen tool would. So there's times when this tool makes a lot more sense than the pen tool. And so now I'm seeing, oops, see, I'm getting into little space. So I want to zoom in, and I'm going to encourage you to get more in the habit of zooming in. I think sometimes we're working from so far away, we can't see what we're doing. I'd like to, oops, hold on, what did I just do? Undo. Oh, cancel. I hit the options. I don't want to hit the options. Oh, cancel. There we go. Delete that. I think I double clicked in what I didn't mean to do. Cancel. Why am I? There we go. Cancel. Start again. All right, just finish this. Giving you all a chance to try it out with yours too. All right, there it is. Okay, so now I've created my triangles that I want to add. If you want to start drawing a new line segment in the point where the previous one ended, so let's say I'm here. I'm going to move my artboards over in my way. Let me just close my artboards. Here is, I'm here. If you go, you press Command Shift A, and to or Control Shift A in Windows to deselect the previous line segment first, and then I can, oops. So in other words, I don't want these to connect. I want to deselect it. So Command Shift A or Control Shift A in Windows to deselect the previous line segment. Otherwise, instead of drawing a new line segment, you'll be moving the endpoint of the previous one. So let's try that. I'm going to select here, Command Shift A, deselect. Oh, I'm not in my line segment tool. Sorry, Command Shift A, deselect, cancel, cancel. Shift A. There we go. There we go. So on and so forth. So I'm bringing in. And so that's one way of using the line segment tool. It's a straightforward tool. The good thing about it is comparison to the pen tool, it allows us to create separate paths that are open and they're not connected. And so that's really the value of this tool over the pen tool. You don't need to worry about removing extra points or grids to connecting path, which a pen tool could do if you click on an existing path. You can draw lines between different intersection points on your grid and create elaborate structures not restricted to specific angles. So think of this process as using a ruler and draw straight lines on graph paper to precisely form the desired shapes and experiment with adding straight lines. So the idea here is to just see what can you do. I'm just showing, one example. So here I've decided to make them go opposite ways. So now they're creating like these arrows, and I could even make it feel like it's zigzagging. Oops. That it's zigzagging through. Now I can see I don't have something connecting. I'm gonna zoom up here, use my direct select tool to kind of lock it in. I can see I have something that's not where I want it there, and this one either. So make sure you're getting in close enough so you can get this pixel perfect as you're designing. Okay, any questions? You all try this pen, the line segment tool. Okay, now let's try the arc tool. The arc tool is one that it's simple, precise curves. So unlike the line segment tool, this is creating curves. And again, kind of easier than thinking about the way the line segment tool makes those straight lines. We can do the same thing where I can grab, oops, click diagonally. You can make lines. You can adjust, oops, the arrow keys. That's what to make. Oops, hold on a minute. Hold on, I'm going to delete. I'm giving you something too quickly here. So we click our arrow. We can, as we're moving it, I can decide that is two up and down arrow keys allows me to adjust this curve to get it where I want it before. Now I'm still holding on. I'm not letting go. So I'm using my up and down arrow keys to adjust the angle of this curve. So I'm like deciding what I want here. And then I'm thinking, okay, do I want to have this go up here? No, maybe I want it to come down. Okay, I think I do. I want it to come down. Pressing C will go between an open and a closed arc. F will change the arc's orientation. And X will switch between a concave and a concave shape, which looks the same as in this particular example as moving it with F. Let's try a few others. And then I'm thinking, what do I want to do here? Maybe I want to make it C will switch orientation. Open and close. F will change its, I'm sorry, F will change its orientation. Do I want it above or below the line? Above or below? How big, up or down? So you can kind of play with the idea of having it go above and below, adjusting the scope. I can see that my lines aren't quite lining up here, so let's adjust that. So you can see I'm kind of making this wiggle. Let's get this guy where I want it. I can obviously use the bezzening handles on the curve to adjust it further if I want, which is handy, right? I can decide this is where I want to adjust it. I can also decide I want to now manually get it in there so it's going with more with my grid, how I want it. And I'm using my direct select tool to make these edits and to get it how I want it to go. So that gives you a lot of control, but you can also, just do it very quickly. And it works well, I think, in patterns if you want to just do something where it's just a shape that I think I'm gonna delete that and try to, I think it needs more of a larger space. So let me try going between two. Let's try that. Undo, undo. Lock it in. I don't think it's lock, undo. There we go. I'm at the intersection, coming into that intersection. There we go. That intersection, I'm going to that. So you can see, you can just keep exploring. Using the keys, F to flip it up or down. X can also adjust the orientation. The arrow keys can adjust the up or down space. Right? So I think you can set it also up numerically. If you need to create an arc, it will fit within a rectangle of a specific size, or if you want to set a certain slope for you, for example, to create a perfect quarter circle, you need to set the slope to 50 or 50. So if you want to select the arc segment tool options, you can decide how big you want it based on the size of your rectangle that you're working within. So I don't know, let's see, 1200, 1200, open x-axis, and I can say, 50 maybe. Just make that perfect 50, say okay. What is it doing? I want it to fit within our circle. Hold on, I don't think I had the artboard selected. Let me get back in here. Make sure I'm selecting a artboard. I'm gonna do 600. That's 600, 600. Where in the world is it going? Let me rethink what I'm doing here. Why is it not lining in here like I want it to? All right, let's go smaller. 20 pixels, type open, base along the x-axis, 50%. Okay. It's just making a diagonal when I say 50%, but it's still creating this arc line that you can adjust. I don't know. I'm going to say, honestly, I don't use the dialog box for this tool much. And you can obviously see that. I don't see it, it's too much math, I think. So I tend to like using it more as a drawing tool. So for me, I like the idea that I can, after I've made these arcs, I can also come back in and adjust them how I want them. I can say, you know what, I don't like it dipping below. I want to keep them in their shape, or I want to expand them, maybe have them go over 2 squares. Those are things you can do as well. So I think this just something to try and play around with by just adding lines, line segment, arc segment. And you might not do them both to the same. Like, for example, for this design, I probably wouldn't put them both. I'd probably say, you know what, I'm just going to do the line segments on this one and then use the arcs on another one. I actually think the arcs work really well. Let me take them off of this design. I think the arcs work really well with circular. I'm going to show you what I mean. So if I go up to, let me zoom out of this and go into a polar grid. Let me zoom into this polar grid. And one of the things I'm doing, because as I'm demoing, and I want you to make sure when you're choosing your, you're in your artboard that you've checked. Let me open up my window for my artboards. You're working, keeping our good habits of saying, okay, I'm on my artboard. I'm on artboard 2 here for this example, which would be 5, 6, 7, which actually I'm going to rename to 7. And then I'm going to create a new layer, Command L, and I'm going to start off with 7 point, oops, calling it 7 point. All right, so I'm giving it a name, and then I'm going to just select everything I've just done. And you can just take this little triangle, this little square, I should say, and pull it right up to my new grid. And so now everything here is in the 7 layer. So make sure you're staying organized for those of you who are, as you're working. I'm going to grab this circular grid, which is going to be our bird 8. All right. And then I'm going to select all 8, grab all of those, and L. And move this all up to polar. Okay. So now I'm in my newest layout. I'm going to grab my arc tool, and now I'm going to play with adding arcs within my polar. And like I said, I can come back in and adjust these how I want, adjust them to the angle I want, and so on and so forth, and play with, how are these going to work within my design. Anyway, so I think some of the things. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is the pen tool. So the pen tool is something that I think most of us are pretty familiar with. It's up here on the left. You can press P, Command P to bring you into the pen tool. Cancel, not Command P, just P. Sorry, just P. Brings you into the pen tool. And you want to create cross path by placing endpoint over the starting point. So the same with the line segment tool when working with the pen tool, use the intersection points of the grid and the smart guides to put your points exactly. If you want to create a straight line, make sure you just click the points and don't hold down the mouse button. Otherwise, you will create curves instead. You want to start with a new path, Command click or Control click in the windows away from the previous path to deselect it. So I'm going to start here in an intersection. If I pull out my path, that's going to make a curve. So I don't want to do this. So I'm just going to click here. I can click here. So you see I have it clicked. So if I want to do Command click, it gets me away. So if I want to go click, oops, I don't want to pull out. I just want to click. So anyway, you can kind of go through and start building your design with the pen tool as well, making these cross paths. But for me, I would probably in this design, I'd probably use the line segment because it would go faster, I think, than me having to kind of click out. Now, the pen tool does help if you want to make something that's connected and it doesn't stop being connected. So here I'm connecting all my points. So then that's helpful to have a connected path. Or if I wanted to make something that just kept going. So, and you can see though what's happening, why it's stopping is it's connecting to these line segments, it's making them a full shape. So let me show you what I mean. So this is connecting this and making this a whole shape. That's what's happening. That's why the line stops. Here, this is a whole shape. Here, this isn't. This is an open path. So it's, and that one's an open path. So it just depends on what kind of needs you have. But the idea now is to take and use the pen tool, the arc tool, and the line segment tool, and start now doing a set of 5, like take your whole set of 5 grids and say, what can I do by adding just line segments to them? Again, you might want to go simpler. Like I think the isometric and the hexagon can get pretty busy, but maybe you can fit in a way you want to add in those elements. I like to use a more simpler path. You can even make a square grid that's not 100 modules wide. You could do one that's maybe half, like it's 600 by 600. So you have a little bit more space to draw with your line tools inside of it. So yeah, so the next step is adding line segments to your designs. After you move into that phase, the next phase can be, as you saw in the last lecture I just gave, or you can bring in your shape tool. You've all worked in the shape tool. You can start doing things like bringing in the polygon tool. Remember, if we hit option, we can build from the center. And so that we can create, concentric shapes with inside of our shapes. So here's where you can now say, I'm going to build concentric shape within, and I'm going to select all of this and align them so they're more aligned. I don't think I had that perfectly aligned. So, here I have a polygon, and I'm going to zoom in a little so I can just see better what I'm doing. And again, I can use my option key to build from the center. Oops. I don't think I was in the right tool. And then I can decide to put one right here in the center of this circle. And so on and so forth. So I can, decide to put a hexagon inside of every circle if I want, and so on and so forth. So start building using one grid now and lines and shapes to continue building your grids. All right.